this session with a keynote address by Brother Anwar Ibrahim. Honorable Brother Anwar Ibrahim was Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia from 1993 to 1998. He also served as the Minister of Finance for Malaysia from 1991 to 1998. Highly respected for his principled stand against corruption and his skillful management of the Malaysian economy during the turbulent period of the financial crisis, Brother Anwar is also viewed as one of the forefathers of the Asian Renaissance and a leading proponent of greater cooperation amongst civilizations. He is an ardent supporter of democracy and an authoritative voice bridging the gap between the East and the West. He also served as a Minister of Culture, Youth and Sports in 1983, Minister of Agriculture in 1984, and the Minister of Education in 1986 in the government of Malaysia prior to his tenure as Finance Minister and Deputy Prime Minister. Active on the national front, Brother Anwar has also been highly engaged in the international arena. He has been a strong advocate for civilizational dialogue and has worked tirelessly towards the ideals of convivencia, that is, the mutual coexistence of civilizations and the interplay of different social, cultural, and spiritual ideas. Brother Anwar was also chairman of the Development Committee of the World Bank and International Monetary Fund in 1998. During his tenure, he strongly endorsed the initiatives of debt cancellations and reprieve for poor countries, particularly those in Africa, with strong support from our PM, Manmohan Singh. Throughout his career in public service, Brother Anwar was unrelenting in his campaign against corruption and has been committed to the ideals of empowerment, justice, and equity. He has stressed the need for internal reforms in order to reinforce civil and democratic institutions and to expand the democratic space. As acting Prime Minister in 1997, he introduced the controversial but effective anti-corruption legislation in Malaysia. His emphasis on social justice, poverty eradication, education, and civil society has guided his government involvement to the end. During his tenure as Finance Minister Malaysia, he enjoyed unprecedented prosperity and economic growth for Malaysia and joined the ranks of other Asian countries as an Asian tiger. Anwar's impact on the economy was immediate. Shortly after becoming its finance minister, Euromoney named him as one of the top 4 finance ministers in 1996, and Asia Money named him the Finance Minister of the Year. He was given the title Asian of the Year by Newsweek International in 1998. Since the year 2004, he has held lecturing positions at St. Anthony College at Oxford and at the School of Advanced International Studies at the Johns Hopkins University, USA. Brother Anwar is a consultant to the World Bank in the areas of governance and accountability and was recently appointed as Honorary President of the London-based Accountability as well as Chairman of the Beirut-based Foundation for the Future. Brother Anwar is currently advisor to the People's Justice Party, that is Keadilan, in Malaysia. He is an internationally renowned speaker on the subjects of democracy, freedom, governance, Islam and democracy, and the need for accountability. In addition to being a moderate Muslim leader and presenter of the message of peace and justice enshrined in Islam, he resides in Washington, D.C., Malaysia, with his wife and 6 children, well known as an articulate, non-corrupt, and outspoken Muslim leader for Muslims and non-Muslims alike. To present his keynote address at this conference on the theme, Peace, the Solution for Humanity, we have before us to speak on a vital, practically demanding topic of the day, current world affairs, challenges and opportunities for peace. Brothers and sisters, please welcome Brother Anwar Ibrahim, former Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia.
الحمد لله الذي أنزل على عبده الكتاب ولم يجعل له عوجا قيما لينذر بأسا شديدا من لدنه ويبشر المؤمنين وأصلي وأسلم على رسوله الكريم وعلى أصحابه أجمعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. And a very good evening, friends. May I begin by expressing my profound thanks and gratitude to my dear, respected friend and a great Da'i, Dr. Zakir Naik, for his initiative, taking us forward, presenting with confidence the message of Islam for peace, for moderation. This is an arduous task, given the prejudices, given the image of Islam throughout the world, which I will not elaborate further because you have heard in the last few days his personal articulation and many of our learned friends who participated in this discourse, in this conference. This is a task that must be performed by some. There must be among us those who spread the message for truth, for justice, calls upon Muslims and non-Muslims alike to believe and remain consistent in their actions. And may Allah reward us and give us His blessings, include us in this muflihun. وَلْتَكُمْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةٌ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ وَيَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ وَأُولَئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. We must enjoin to do good, to reject evil, misdeeds, corruption and repression in all its forms, manifestations. Then we can claim to be able to represent the message of good and to be included and recognized by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as those performing a good task.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm Dr. Bilal Phillips, and you're watching Peace TV.
Mukhtar Maghrabi.
From darkness to light, from ignorance to knowledge, from vice to virtue, from aimlessness to direction. Find your heart. Find your freedom. Watch Heart Talk.
Heart Talk, tomorrow at 7 p.m. Saudi Arabia and 8 p.m. UAE on Peace TV.
Confusion, conflict, lack of values, lack of genuine faith, living life unaware. Religions manipulated, misunderstood, religious scriptures altered and modified for petty gain. In all this, Millie, I will strive to expose the truth, because It's your right to know, and my duty to tell the truth.
Watch Dr. Zakir Naik in Truth Exposed, next on Peace TV.
There must be among us those who spread the message for truth, for justice, calls upon Muslims and non-Muslims alike to believe and remain consistent in their actions. And may Allah reward us and give us His blessings, include us in this muflihun. وَلْتَكُمْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةٌ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ وَيَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ وَأُولَئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. We must enjoin to do good, to reject evil, misdeeds, corruption and repression in all its forms, manifestations. Then we can claim to be able to represent the message of good and to be included and recognized by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as those performing a good task. Dear friends, what is the relevance of a discourse? Islam and peace for humanity. For us Muslims, we believe profoundly so that Islam is a message for humanity. There is, of course, a disconnect, a contradiction, because what is projected and promoted, partly because of the prejudice of the West, partly because of the faults of the Muslims themselves. We are here in Mumbai. There's relative freedom. You can express yourself freely. We can't express ourselves freely in all Muslim countries. I have not been asked to limit my discussions except to respecting the rule of law in this country. Nobody told me to avoid stating certain issues or facts or criticizing the Indian government, whatever. This speaks volumes, because this is not the norm in most Muslim societies. So if we believe in enjoining good and forbidding evil, strive for peace and justice, we must have this latitude, this space. Some of us prefer to use the term democratic space. Some of my Muslim friends say that, well, we don't quite like the word democracy because President Bush seems to promote democracy. But I have to remind them that India has been long a democracy since 1947, and the great freedom fighters of all religious creed talked about democracy long before President Bush was alive. So I don't think it is fair and correct to attribute the issues of freedom and democracy to the excesses of the United States. When they espouse democracy, we don't have reservations. But of course, we are not naive to assume that they remain consistent. They have democracy in Palestine, but if a Muslim party wins, Hamas, then that democracy is rejected. Democracy must be according to the dictate of Washington. And that is why people begin to question the consistency, the coherence of such a message. The Muslims are told that they must be morally consistent. If they disagree, it is not because they represent different creed or religion. If it's something injustice perpetrated by the West, it is an injustice. Similarly, if it is an injustice perpetrated by Muslims themselves, it cannot be condoned. This is a coherent, moral, consistent moral message. And this we find in this universal message, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ, that the Prophet is sent to us to give rahmah, blessing to mankind. Is not justice for the Muslims and not to the rest. Is not justice for one country and condemn the rest. That is why, as a matter of principle, we reject any form of colonial rule, imperialism, or control of countries through the sheer force and might of power, like what is happening throughout the world today. So, dear friends, I am reminded, of course, on this point of consistency, because before you deliberate on the issue of peace and justice for humanity, I'm reminded of a great Japanese thinker. You know why I choose to bring some Japanese into this picture? Because the only thing you remember of Japanese is probably Sony and transistor and radio and IT. It's also to understand that there are also Japanese thinkers who study and reflect on issues affecting humanity at large. Toshihiko Izutsu talked precisely on this issue of moral precepts. He states that, among other things, that for the first time in the history of mankind, we have a consistent moral message. What was wrong in the period of Jahiliyyah remains wrong for the present. We don't have a propensity to change according to the times on issues of principles. If we talk about basic human rights, it's the same right that you talk about 1,400 years ago, and you don't compromise on this basic right on the freedom of conscience, freedom of expression, independent judiciary, and the rule of law. Because if you do concede, then you hear tyrants and dictators, including in the Muslim world, talking about freedom and that Muslims are not ready for freedom and democracy. They say, we are not United States. In our country, people are not ready for freedom and democracy because that is a Western construct. It took America 200 years to decide on the case of Brown and the Board of Education to give equal rights to whites and blacks. Agreed? So, do we Muslims need to wait another 200 years before giving basic rights to our people? Before gender equality? Before stopping these excesses of rampant endemic corruption and treating our citizens as half slaves? Certainly this is not acceptable. We change, as I said earlier, like the Indians do. And I'm a great promoter of freedom and democracy, and India happens to be a very good, clear example. I'm not saying it is perfect. There are problems, there are extremists on all sides, but at least with respect, we say that India has an independent judiciary. We can't hear of most any country in the world that a judiciary can even dismiss a prime minister just by respecting the rule of law. If you do that in some other countries, then the prime minister stays, the judge head will go. But here, The Prime Minister went, and the system of judiciary remained intact. And this speaks volumes on the strength of the Indian tradition. People talk about whether we are ready or not. And in the press conference this afternoon, I am reminded of Jawaharlal Nehru's tryst with destiny, with the great speech during the inauguration of Indian independence in 1947, about respecting freedom and basic rights of the Indian people. This was 1947. Can you now, in 2007, say that Indians are not ready to express themselves freely after 60 years of independence? Fortunately, this is, alhamdulillah, something more positive about India as a nation compared to many other countries, including your neighbors. After 60 years of independence, they tell us that our people are not ready. Then my next question would be, what have you been doing in the last 60 years? Making money, enriching your family, and bullying your people, and not giving them good education, good housing? So these questions must be addressed. And this is an issue of governance. Now, friends, I mention all these views on governance, on coherence into the moral context, because you can't have peace in the world unless we have order, and we have stability, and we respect justice. Even in the Indian context, when you have, you see this remarkable economic progress. In the 90s, we in Malaysia thought that we were doing well. Now, India has surpassed in terms of economic growth, in terms of its economic vibrancy, in terms of its IT. But we know there is always room for improvement. And Bernard Shaw, when he talks about room for improvement, the room seems to be wide, because there are many things that we have to grapple with. Issue of corruption, issue of abject poverty, issue of housing around Mumbai and all these cities, which must be addressed. Issue of the marginalized and the poor, be it the untouchables or the Harijans or the Muslims. I was given recently the Sachar report. And I think for a great country like India, these issues must be addressed, because India can be vibrant and successful and can lead the change in Asia in particular only if it's seen to ensure that there's economic growth and justice for all, for minorities, for Hindus, for Muslims, for Sikhs. Only then can we have this as an example for excellence.